Hi, Year 11, and welcome back. I hope that you're all doing okay and that your first day back has been quite smooth and quite calm. I know that you're going to be really stressed out and overwhelmed. It's only natural after us all being out of school for so long, but we're here to help you. So I'm going to explain what you're going to be doing today in your lesson, and then what's going to happen in the next few lessons going forward. So there's a PowerPoint which I'm going to go through now. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to view it properly in the lesson or not, so I've got some kind of backups just in case. So first I'm just going to go through a plan for the rest of the year, okay? Like I said, I know a lot of you are going to be feeling overwhelmed. We're really happy to have you back. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person, but I am still here to help you as much as I can up until sort of the middle of May, but it may be that you get another teacher as well to help you in the interim. So today I've planned quite a relaxing task for you based on your music topic, linking to the work of Marlena Vera, and this is going to contribute towards everyone's music project portfolio. So before I go through what's happening in future lessons, what you're going to be asked to complete by the end of the course is your portfolio for your music project and your portfolio for your organics project. There's not going to be any exam or any external task, and then part of the assessment criteria for the music project has been removed. So it's more just about developing a project in response to music rather than having to do all the different art movements bits. So if you didn't quite get around to finishing all 3 art movements and that kind of thing, then you don't have to worry because that bit's been taken away from the assessment to make it a little bit easier. So in your future lessons, there's going to be an opportunity for you to finish off your designs and your development for your organics project. Obviously, some of you have been able to access the work on remote on Teams for remote learning. You might be a little bit further ahead. So I'm hoping to work out a way that I can sort of communicate with you in lessons to give you some more tutorials. So that's why we're doing the music study today, just so we can work out some logistics. So as I said, the priority is going to be to finish the organics project first. That's the one that the examiner is going to be reviewing. Don't worry about that for now, but that's the one they're going to be looking at. They won't look at everyone, but obviously I'll have to look at everyone's work and mark it. Once the organics project is done, go back to the music project. Obviously, for some of you, that'll be sooner rather than later. And you'll do the same. You'll create some designs, develop the design, and create a final piece for that unit. The aim is to complete most of the work by early May, although you don't have an end date for when school is going to finish yet. That's usually when we would finish all of our BTEC work anyway. Okay, and we're going to focus on the organics unit from Wednesday, but I will plan an alternate task so that if all your organics things are done, there are a small number of you that are done with that project. You should know who you are because we chatted a lot on email and on Teams. I'll make sure there's a separate task for you to explain what happens with the music project. I might even try to make a booklet if we can get it printed out in time. So your plan for today, I'm going to talk you through the PowerPoint now, and then I've made you a quick tutorial. The video I'm going to put on YouTube as well, not necessarily with a voiceover because I'm doing one here, but just if you wanted to catch up and kind of see it again. So I've chosen the work of Marlena Vera for us to look at because it's really colourful, really fun, also because it's almost abstract, so I think a lot of you could kind of take it in a lot of different directions, and the fact that she overlaps instruments and they're not completely realistic, I think it's just a nice task to ease you back in. And this will go straight towards your music portfolio then, as one of the artists that you look at. Okay, so a little bit about her. So she's a Latin American artist. You can see lots of work from her studio here. She works in a Cubist style. So a lot of you will have looked at Cubism if you have been in Year 9. But she sells a lot of work, obviously, in America because it's nearer to where she lives. And then South America, all over Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. So she's quite a well-known international artist. And you can see from her work, she has a really definite style. A lot of the time she includes people, but I've purposely obviously gone for the ones that are just instruments because it makes more, it's more relevant to your project. Okay, so just an overview of the task. So these are examples of her work, and then this on the end is an example of my work in progress. It did take me a little while to do, so it might be that, it takes you the majority of the lesson. You might have a tiny bit left to finish afterwards. So the idea is that following on from the tutorial I'm going to show you in a moment, you're going to make your own music composition. So you're not doing a copy of her work necessarily. You're going to design your own, but whilst referring to her sort of style. Okay, so success criteria is going to include things like including at least 3 images over the top of each other. So most of the time these instruments, you can see there's, I think maybe it's like a cello. I know the musicians in the room may be able to correct me on that, but maybe a cello. That looks a bit more like an acoustic guitar. Maybe a saxophone. There's obviously keyboard keys. Sometimes she includes just lots of patterns, swirls, bottles for some reason, but they're quite cool because they overlap again, so things aren't quite as they seem. Make sure that you use some symmetry in your work, okay? So overlapping a shape and kind of maybe having a mirror image somewhere. Try to include things like swirls, waves, and keyboard keys, anything that conveys the feeling or the movement of music. And when you're adding colour, what you'll notice is in her work, she uses a lot of kind of hot colours to contrast with the cold, and they tend to kind of bounce off each other. So try to do a mixture of that in your work as well by blending colours. And you're going to be using colour pencils for this. Just because I find that'll be a little bit easier. There's a couple of watercolour tins left, but not many, because I know that a lot of you borrowed them before Christmas. So it may be that, depending on obviously distancing in the classroom and so on, you might be able to do a little bit of painting, but it might also be worth waiting until you're more established and using the colour pencils. The colour pencils should either be at the front of the classroom on one of the bookshelves, particularly the one on the left. I think it's the not the top shelf, but the one below it. Hopefully they're by there for you. But just have a little rummage and your kind of your 11 set. If not, the shelving unit on the right when you're facing the door to go out of the room, there's lots of baskets of colour pencils there that have been colour coded, so you can use those as well. They just might need a sharpen, but if you do use those, try to put them back in the right box. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the tutorial that I've made you. And like I said, I've put it on YouTube as well, so that if you needed to re-watch it, you wouldn't have to watch this whole stream link again. And I'll just talk you through a few bits, okay? So you're going to be working on paper. It doesn't have to be a full page in your book. It could be half a page. So I'm just drawing an indication line there, and I'm just using a piece of scrap paper. This is a really good tip for creating symmetry in your work. I'm just going to draw half a guitar onto my folded paper. Just a really, really simple shape. As you can see, nice and sketchy, you know, not having to worry about being too neat, and cut that out. There should also be scissors on the shelving unit for you, hopefully, again, as you're facing the door to go out into room 3. Open it back up, and you're going to use that as a template on your paper. So I'm just lining it up with the line that I drew a minute ago, and I'm just going to draw around this shape. Excuse me. And I'm going to overlap it. So play around with the composition. You don't have to do it the same as me. You don't have to do the same instruments. It's completely your work, but obviously referring to her style. But you can use that kind of paper template as many times as you want to. And then you could just start to build in some other shapes. So I'm just going to do some curves here, just to try and create some little new shapes within the instruments. And I'm going to do some keyboard keys because I really like the idea of that in her work. And on mine, I'm going to draw them so they almost get like a little bit smaller to create the sense of distance, because although her work is very abstract and, you know, colourful and quite flat, she does still have some hints of kind of depth in there where the shapes kind of vary in size. So I'm just playing around with the keyboard keys a little bit. Okay, so you're going to continue kind of sketching in lots of different details. So I'm going to draw almost like a sort of a saxophone type shape here. And again, you can see I'm overlapping them onto existing shapes, and it's going to create all these little interesting shapes for me to add colour to. Okay, so I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit so you can see what it looks like when it's finished. So I've added a few more details here, so some smaller music notes here. And what I'm doing is I'm just going over the whole surface with my rubber. I just pointed really quickly to the edge of the rubber, so try and keep it flat. And I'm just going to take away the excess pencil that I don't need. That's going to help to avoid any pencil kind of interacting with my colour and making it muddy or getting in the way. And then first thing I would do is just gently kind of outline the shape, just to kind of create a border that you don't go out of. And then we're adding colour. Just remember, in case you haven't used colour pencils in a little while, or maybe they're perhaps not your go-to material, you'll get the best effects by either kind of going up and down or side to side with your pencil, but keeping that direction quite similar. It's going to create a smoother effect. So I'm going to try and create that warmth and that blending technique that Marlena uses. So I'm starting off with kind of a reddy colour. I'm going to go in with a darker red in a second as well, just to add a bit more depth. Okay, so I'm not necessarily pressing harder, I'm just spending longer in certain places, and what you'll find is the colour will develop that way. If you press too hard, sometimes it can be really difficult to get that blending technique in. Okay, and I'm just going to add some orange. So the only time I go against my rule of kind of going in the same direction is when I'm just outlining the shape just slightly, because I find it's easier if I've got a line to go up to. And again, just going up and down, really smooth to blend it together. I just skip ahead a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in a second. Okay, the coloring's not, the color value isn't great on the video. Okay, so you should hopefully be able to see some sort of nice blended technique here. Now, just one thing to be careful of that I've done here is that obviously when you overlap colour pencils, they're going to create new colours. So if you overlap a red with a blue, then you're going to find that you might get like a burgundy or a brown colour. It's nothing to worry about, but if it's something you don't like the look of, then obviously just keep your colours separate. So I'm just doing a blue, cool toned kind of blending technique here, going from really dark blue, fading into a baby blue. Okay, the trick is to kind of go back and forth between the pencils. And I'm just going to skip ahead. Apologies if you can hear lots of rain. I'm in the attic and it's just started to rain and hail. Okay, but we'll persevere through it. So I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit more so you can see the development of the piece. So lots of different colours here. Now, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit more. Okay, now in this bit, I'm just using some hatching and cross-hatching marks. That's obviously with lines overlap, and I'm doing it with two colours. I wanted a slightly different texture. I'm going to add a few different textures into this piece, just so it's not all kind of flat and the same. So it's something you might want to experiment with. And it's obviously a good way of adding tone to your work as well. And it's quite subtle, but it just creates a little bit of interest and a little bit of depth. Okay, and if I skip ahead here, just so you can see a little bit more. So in this part, I'm going to do something called scumbling. So it's like drawing lots and lots of little squiggles or clouds. We would have tried it with the pen techniques when you came back in September, a long time ago now. And I'm just going to alternate between warm and cool colours again. So like lots of oranges, then blues, and then maybe some purple. And again, it's just a nice texture. So if I just skip ahead to show you what it looks like when it's finished. Like so. Okay, and just continue to play around with the colour, like I said, balancing the cool colours and the warm colours until you've got a composition that you're happy with. Okay, and as you can see here, I've just done a few more kind of cool tones and warm tones, but I'm starting to bring in other colours. So I'm not just using red, orange, blue. I've gone for a little bit of baby blue, a bit of turquoise, a bit of pink. So you can expand. There's a really nice kind of yellow blending section down the bottom here. So obviously try and play around with it. If you want to use some small elements of kind of black and grey as well, you can. Use them sparingly and they'll really add some depth to your work. Okay, so there's a more up-to-date kind of example of what that looks like on the PowerPoint for you to watch. So if I just go back to the PowerPoint a second for you. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see this PowerPoint slides in the lesson. If not, I've put it on Teams for you to refer to at a later date. And like I said, whilst we work out the logistics of me being at home and you guys being in school, but you want to aim for a composition that looks something like this, but is your own design, with lots of lovely colour blending. With the assessment criteria for the music unit, a lot of it's going to be focusing on like skills and experiments. So making sure that you've got a really good colour pencil piece in there is important. And then, like I said, we'll hopefully go back to the organics project for those of you that need to in our Wednesday lesson, but more details to come soon. Okay, look after yourselves, try not to get too stressed, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.